だから誓った。呪いが解けたあの日にそばにいるって。あの子が俺を必要としなくなる。誰よりも弱くて、誰よりも脆くて臆病な悲しい女の子の。
Anime and other forms of media and literature have examined the trope of being born special in near innumerable ways to various degrees. A very accessible form of this exploration can be found in many different shonen anime. The all-powerful combatant, destined from birth to be nearly invincible. Someone born to be better than the vast majority simply by virtue of their innate characteristics. This form of the trope, however, often fails to consider the flip side of the situation for varying reasons, for example, the grandeur of the setting or the needs of the narrative. A major contributing factor in this is that those blessed individuals rarely find themselves placed in situations that test the very foundations of their humanity. To be born special may be a blessing, but it may also manifest itself as a curse. After all, being born unique from everyone else might make one better or more powerful, but it also means that one is inherently different from everyone that they may interact with. So, being born with this divine favor may prove to be the biggest obstacle one battling isolation and loneliness could face.
神様が動物たちに言いました。神様が僕は十二支にとって誰よりも神に等しい存在。彼らの魂を滑るもの。
What does it mean to be a god? For Akito Sohma, it does not mean celestial powers that reign supreme over her subjects. Instead, being a god means never truly understanding others and never having her own needs understood. Born to the head of the powerful Sohma family, Akito Sohma was possessed from birth by the spirit of the god of the zodiac, making her not only the familial head by blood, but the one linking all of the zodiac spirits that possess members of the Sohma clan. Once a kind-hearted and curious child with bright hopes for the future and resources beyond measure to achieve any goal, Akito instead traveled down a dark path that led her to isolation, hatred, and fear. As the main antagonist of Fruits Basket, we're introduced to these aspects of her character first, and then have those qualities recontextualized as we learn more about her past. And despite the pain and suffering she brings to the main characters, the truth is that Akito, this woman we believe to be mad with power and relishing in the torture she brought upon the Zodiac members, is as terrified as everyone else. The role of God that initially seemed to give her freedom to wreak havoc upon the Zodiac members is actually quite the opposite of freedom. It's something that shackles her, chaining her in a dark room alone. As the one possessed by the god of the Zodiac, from birth, Akito was guaranteed one thing: that she would always be connected to the other members of the Zodiac and loved by all of them, and thus would never truly be alone. Her father, Akito Sohma, the former head of the Sohma family, died when Akito was still young. Her mother, Ren Sohma, an insecure and spiteful individual, insisted Akito be raised as male for a number of reasons. Ren feared Akito stealing her spot in Akito's heart, wishing to be the only woman he would ever love. She also harbored immense jealousy towards her daughter, who would be loved by many. Following the death of Akito, Ren would go on to psychologically torture her young daughter, calling her an unwanted child who ruined her perfect marriage. Because of this, and her father's insistence that she was special, Akito became starved for any displays of affection.
どうしてレンはアキトを抱いてやらないの？私がわざわざ抱かなくたって。この子はそのために生まれてきた子なんだ。仕方ないだろう。私とアキラさん。私とアキラさんの絆は本物だわ。殺してやる。殺してやる。殺せばいい。私が死んだら私の魂は天に昇ってアキラさんのもとへ行く。あんたなんかいらないのよ。アキト、愛されるために生まれてきた子。みんながお前を待っていたよ。
As she grew into adulthood, with none but the eldest 4 zodiacs knowing her true gender, Akito suffered multiple psychotic breaks, the most important of which came when her mother slept with Hattori, the man for whom Akito harbored romantic feelings of love, continuing the cycle of mistrust and antagonization between the mother and child. In this regard, most of Akito's neuroticism can be attributed to Ren, who dismissed her daughter's feelings and desired to undermine Akito's position as the family head, as the god of the zodiac, and perhaps most importantly, her role as a woman by taking the man she desired and forcing Akito to live as a man. Akito entered into a secret sexual relationship with Kurano, but not out of romantic love or affection, but because of the fact that she feared being alone more than anything else. She sought to establish control over the Zodiac, and as such, she began to project her mother's abuse onto the Zodiac members to assert what she believed was her ownership of them. After all, as God, Akito was the only one who could or would ever truly love them for who they are, and accept them for their cursed selves. Akito became obsessed with the bonds they shared as members of the Zodiac, but this obsession was simply a manifestation of her own crippling fear of being alone. She psychologically and physically abused the Zodiac members in order to keep them under her control and tethered to her, but this ironically only pushed them away. For most children, their biggest fear is being alone or isolated. And so for a child worshipped by all, inundated with promises of bonds and eternal love, nothing could be more jarring than feeling as if they're losing the affection they were promised. This is not to say that Akito carried herself in an acceptable fashion, but rather that her actions were understandable, given who she is as a person. When you're told from birth that you're special, that you're destined to be loved by all, any amount of the opposite can drastically warp your view of yourself. Her obsession with the Zodiac bonds underlined the fact that her version of being born special was simply that she was different from the others she was allegedly eternally connected to. And so, if she could not be loved by them, she had to become the powerful god that owned them and commanded their fates. When viewed from the perspective of an antagonist, she is truly a terrifying and vindictive individual. However, when viewed through the lens of a scared child, warped by abuse and grand promises, it becomes clear that nothing would make more sense for a character like Akito Sohma. In many cultures, religious texts, forms of media, to be a god is to be almighty, powerful, and universally loved. But for Akito Sohma, being a god is simply vague promises of those things, and a constant reminder that she is different. Sure, she has a spiritual bond with the Zodiac members, but that means nothing without the love and affection she was guaranteed from birth. And so, as her hysteria continued to push away those who were supposed to love her, her fear of being alone festered into hatred and violence. The truth Akito could never accept was that she fixated on those Zodiac bonds and preached them as gospel because without them, she would be completely alone. This is all heavily exacerbated by the fact that she was raised as a male instead of as a female, completely hiding a core element of her character from most people. Until the end of the series, everything we come to know about Akito ends up being a facade. Fruits Basket is, above all else, a series about love and connectedness. Toru Honda is the rare kind of person who, by virtue of her kind-hearted and compassionate nature, allows others to accept themselves. Toru is a beautiful figure who embodies the theme of love through her extraordinary ability to form genuine relationships with anyone, despite their insecurities and shortcomings. And in doing so, she allows them to overcome those fears and doubts and move on as people. Akito Sohma is the flip side of that coin, someone who highlights those insecurities in order to control people. In that way, Akito is the perfect antagonist for a protagonist like Toru, because despite how different they are, both of their motives directly relate back to the theme of love and human connection.
何？その目、どうしてそんな遠い目で僕を見るの？いやー！